Hey guys, what is up? Tominator here. So in this one I wanted to talk about the Toronto Pro Supershow that took place last weekend and kind of give my take on how it all went down because as you probably heard by now, Juan Morel ended up winning. And from what I've read on other videos, the comment section of other YouTube videos and such, it seems to be the popular opinion that he did not deserve it. That he was not the rightful winner, that this victory was basically down to politics because Akim Williams came in some of the best shape I've ever seen him in, perhaps the best shape of his life. Not that you can tell by this photo here where he's not actually flexing, but this brother really brought the conditioning, man, like he's never done before probably. I think that he really showed up in great shape. He's always had the muscle bellies, the raw size and everything to hang with the big boys, but he's just never come in really diced. And here he did that more so than ever before. You can see him not looking too happy about this runner-up finish. So was it a robbery? There's definitely a case to be made for that. I'm going to break it down pose by pose in a second. But first I wanted to talk about Cedric McMillan, who ended up taking third. He was a last-minute entry into the show. And he wasn't originally intending to compete. I think he just decided on a whim last minute that, hey man, I'm already here because he was there in a booth signing autographs and stuff. I'm already here in Toronto. Might as well just slap on a pair of posing trunks and go out there because I think I can beat most of these guys anyway, even though I'm not in the best shape ever. And he certainly wasn't. He definitely was holding a lot of water, even a little bit of fat, and we'll see that in the ab and thigh pose. So I'm not going to go into my usual depth here for this second call-out because I want to focus most of the video on the top two, that head-to-head battle, which I think is more important and more interesting. Now, this second call-out is really tough to call. I was honestly having a tough time as I went through all the poses, deciding who was winning them because, it's really that classic case of apples and oranges. I mean, Cedric is just so much bigger than these guys. You don't often see such a size discrepancy within the same call-out. And there's also definitely a discrepancy between conditioning. You can see that right here. Cedric's definitely softer than both these guys, but on the other hand, he's just so much larger than them. And all three of them have great structure. They have great proportions and muscle bellies, etc. Like they all are very complete bodybuilders for the most part, and they don't have a lot of weaknesses. So it's tough to call. It's really a case of what do you reward? Do you go with conditioning over mass, or do you go with mass over conditioning? Because that's the major difference between these three guys, all right? So, but you can see it right here. He's not in good shape, Cedric. And from the back, it was the same deal. Not as bad, though. Cedric does tend to come in, his conditioning always tends to look better from the back for some reason than it does from the front. We see more detail now. And, you can even see, like, his hamstrings. They got some definition downstairs. In his back as well. He's got really good proportions. The symmetry's a little off, though, in his lats here, but that's really my only complaint. I guess his back could use a little more thickness, as we see with Anton here on the right, who's got tons of thickness, especially in the lower lats. He's kind of crunching down on them more, but he still looked great. I'd probably give him this pose. You can see he's the sharpest in the glute area as well, so the lower body, he's definitely the tightest and the driest of the three of them. Brandao wasn't quite as good as he was in the Cali Pro, for instance. I think that he's not really as peeled as he was there. Could just be the lighting as well, because the Cali Pro lighting I think was a little bit better, but still, we see some wrinkles in the back and everything. He doesn't look as diced in the glutes as Anton, for instance, and he's just given up way too much size to Cedric, and even to Anton. I think Anton's showing more thickness in this back double bicep. So I'd probably go with him. But in the side tricep, you can see Cedric pulling ahead here, I think, because even though he's not as conditioned, you wouldn't really know it from this angle. I mean, from the side, his leg looks pretty much just as good as either of these guys in terms of conditioning, yet it's so much bigger, right? And his abs look really good here. They actually look better here than they do in the ab and thigh pose for some reason. And his chest looks good. And let's talk about the tricep, man. Look at the meat on that thing. Amazing muscle bellies on his arms here. So I would give this easily to Cedric, even though he's the least conditioned of the three. It doesn't look like it from this angle, does it? And in the ab and thigh, this is where things really go wrong for Cedric. You can see that layer of flab obscuring his abs. So that's more than water, for sure, man. He's got some fat to trim there. So that's really kind of almost embarrassing to get up on stage in this kind of condition when we're talking about not even having visible abs. But still, I mean, when we look downstairs, it's very close now. I'd probably give it to Anton again because I think he's the best from head to toe, although his vacuum's pretty awesome from Raphael. But you can see some faint feathering here in the quads, which you don't see on anybody else really. So I think this guy's got the edge in conditioning. You could definitely make a case for either of these guys placing ahead of Cedric for sure. But I don't really think it's a robbery. I really feel for the judges, man, having to pick between these guys, because this is such a weird call out. It's so hard trying to judge physiques that are so different, man. Like, I was having personally a really tough call with this. I can see arguments being made for Cedric. I can see arguments being made for Brandao and for Valant over here. So, fuck, man. You tell me, guys. I don't know. But on to the whole meat and potatoes of the show, which is the top call-out, and that was between Akim Williams and Juan Morel. And right off the bat, holy shit, man, Akim is destroying him in the front double bicep. This is lights out. This is lights out, game over right here, man, in this pose anyway, because I think this is probably the best front double bicep pose I've seen in the IFBB, period, in the last couple of years, honestly, man. Like, his structure, the flare through the lats, the massive arms with the nice sweeping triceps, the good biceps, even the forearms, the pecs look good too. The waist is nice and tight and thin, and the legs are pretty good. They're on point. Whereas Juan Morel, you can see certain advantages that he has, like the lower insertions in his lats, so he's bigger there, and that'll become more noticeable when they turn around. His pecs are very good, as are his shoulders. But downstairs, come on, man, it's not even close. Akim is just murking him in the lower body, and we'll see that from virtually every angle. The lower body is no contest between these two. And, you know, the arms, he's whooping Juan there. Juan's are a little bit too small compared to his massive torso. So for me, easy win in the front double bicep for Akim. It's not even close. In the front lat spread, this one's closer for sure, but I would still go with Akim because I notice more flare through the lats, a better taper because his waist is a little narrower. The legs go without saying once again. The arms are better. You know, his chest looks good. Juan's chest is better, but it's almost like too good for him. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's kind of stealing the pose. I really notice his shoulders and his chest more than his lats in this one. So, you know, you could give those two body parts to Juan, but everything else is going to Akim. So I would go with Akim in the front lat spread, although it's not as much of a blowout as the first pose. And I would go with Akim on the side chest. If only, because once again, the lower body, it's just night and day. I mean, this is like Ronnie Coleman when he came in condition. This is like Kai Green in his heyday, man. I mean, we're seeing all sorts of detail, just crazy mass, tons of sweep in the hammies. And look at the glute ham tie-in. Look at all the striations in the glutes, and then, you know, the quad sweep as well. Even the calves look good, better than Juan. So, I mean, he's blowing him out of the water and downstairs. Upper body's very close. He might even give a slight edge to Juan Morel. I think his pecs look a little bit bigger, maybe a little fuller. Could just be the angle that he's turning to hit it, but I mean, like, it's very close upstairs. Juan definitely has a tighter midsection, but is it enough to overcome this huge discrepancy in the lower body? No way. So I would give it to Akim as well. So that's 3-0 in terms of poses. This is where Juan starts to make up some ground, and you can see that perhaps he might even be winning this pose if you're placing most of your emphasis on the back. If that's where your eyes are really going and you're focusing most of your attention on that, then okay, I think his back is bigger, and I think it is better than Akim's. He doesn't have the same level of taper, true, but he's got so much more thickness and density, and just look at the meatiness of his lower lats and everything. It's just bigger. Same with his shoulders. He's really outmassing Akim there as well. But when we're talking about balance from head to toe, you got to go with Akim, man. I mean, his arms are more in proportion to the rest of his body, whereas Juan's, again, are looking very weak, very small compared to his shoulders and his back. Again, Juan's very top-heavy, and you can see that in the lower body because his lower body's smaller than Akim's. He's got, like, no quad sweep showing. The glutes are tight, but I think Akim's are a little bit better. Same with the hamstrings. I think Akim's are a little bit better. And the calves, Akim's winning in there. So, like, if we're talking about completeness and everything, you got to go with Akim. If we're focusing mainly on conditioning and just overall raw muscularity and mass and everything, then you could make a case for Juan winning it. But I think what's more important is being balanced, right? Not having weaknesses. That's really what should determine a champion in bodybuilding, is who has the least weaknesses, not who has some really showy muscle groups and good body parts, but is just lacking in other areas, right? So to me, I would go with this guy, even though he's not quite as dry as Juan, even though he's not quite as big or as good through the back. He's better when it comes to the limbs, so he's more complete. So I would still make my case for Akim winning this pose, but it's definitely closer. You could go either way. I could see the judges giving it to Juan. but I personally would not. In the rear lat spread, same thing. Once again, we see that Juan just is a little bit bigger. He's outsizing him. But again, I think that Akim's taper is more pronounced because his waist is narrower and his lats really flare out wide and in a very sharp angle. So I think he's got a great taper. Downstairs, again, I think he's beating Juan. I think that's obvious to anybody. So yeah, I personally would go with Akim, man. I mean, you could definitely make a case for Juan. But for all the same reasons I just mentioned in the back double buy, I'm going with this guy. So in the side tricep, this one's closer. Again, it's not a great pose for any of them, but again, the lower body is just, come on. Akim, all day. Now, Juan's midsection is noticeably better here. Akim's is slightly, ever so slightly distended, nothing too bad, but it's just not showing any definition through the abs like Juan is here. And through the arms and delts and pecs, these guys are pretty close, pretty similar. So I don't know. I'm personally, you could even give it a tie because we see that Juan's legs he's just a little sharper, a little drier, a little harder than Akim. And I think that that's really one of the things that the judges might have given Juan the edge for, and that's why he won, is just because his conditioning was a bit better. And, he was a little bit bigger in certain important body parts like the back, right? But honestly, I get what you guys are saying about politics, and I think it is a lot of that coming into play too, because this guy was coming off that impressive runner-up spot at the New York Pro where he was really pushing Nathan DeAsha, a highly rated bodybuilder. So I think that the judges definitely had him in mind, and they were considering him from the get-go as the front runner for the show, and that's why they were kind of a little bit biased towards him. It's got to be something like that for sure, man, because I think that Akim is still winning most of the poses, and I think, look at this. When they turn to the front, I think that now he's winning it easily. Even though Juan's beating him in the midsection, that's about it, honestly. I wouldn't say that Juan's really beating him anywhere else. Now, he does have some nice striations in the quads here, in the teardrop and on the outer head, but so does Akim. And Akim's got a lot more size to go along with it, so I would give the side tricep probably to Akim, but it's so close you might as well tie him, but it doesn't matter because Akim's already won certain poses just clear as day, so he's already got the lead. So Juan's the one who has to make up ground. Now again, you can see he's got a much better midsection than Akim. Juan's got one of the best set of abs in the pro ranks right now, I think, because his abs are just so deeply defined. You see that right here. You can see great definition in the serratus and in the intercostals. It's very tight through the obliques. But when we go downstairs, it just doesn't measure up, man. It just doesn't do it. Okay, this is not good enough to be a champion when you're going up against these wheels right here, man. Look at that feathering right here. Look at the thickness. Even the calves are not bad either. I mean, come on. You got to go with Akim here, too. I mean, unless you're only focusing most of your attention on the midsection. So I would personally go with Akim again. In the most muscular, this one, I like the way Akim's hitting it. This is a throwback to the old days, man. Not like pretty much nobody does it like this anymore. And for good reason, because most of the guys don't have a tight enough waistline to pull it off. You really need to be small here, and you have to have really wide shoulders to pull this one off. I don't think it's very flattering for his chest, though, and I think his arms, obviously they're not that flexed like they would be in a crab or in a hands clasp like this. So, but on the other hand, it does put more notice towards his legs, which I think are a real standout feature for him. So I like it on him. I think that he could look better in the crab, too, but this is cool because it's different, Juan Morel looks decent in the upper body, but when we go downstairs, it's just, okay. I've spoken enough about his lack of wheels. I think you guys get the point. In the most muscular, the crab most muscular, that is, I might give the edge to Juan, though, because even though, once again, the lower body is no contest, the upper body, I think he's really outdoing Akim here. I think this is where the difference in conditioning really becomes apparent. You can just see how much harder he is, how much more vascular and everything. His muscles look like they're made of granite, whereas Akim's, you can't really say that about. If this guy had the same kind of texture to his physique that Juan does, he'd be crushing it because he's got the roundness. He's got probably better arms, even from this angle. Well, we know he's got better arms, but they don't look that much better here. But, he's got the roundness, he's got the mass and everything, but he just looks a little smooth compared to this. So I would give a slight edge to Juan. For argument's sake, let's just give him the most muscular, but still, it's not enough for him to win. So that's what's up, guys. There's Akim looking pretty mopey. And, I think personally, you could say this is a robbery. Because I would firmly say that Akim beat Juan Morel in most of the poses. And just when we're looking at body part by body part, he won. So I don't know why he placed second, other than the judges were kind of more inclined towards Juan Morel going into it just because of his recent finish and the fact that Akim's got a poor track record, right? So I think that they were definitely favoring Juan a little bit. And I think that's probably what gave him this victory. I think if these guys were to compete, like if they had another show next weekend and they came in the same kind of shape, I think the judges might be more favorable towards Akim and he might take it. But that's what it is, guys. That's how bodybuilding goes. The higher ranked guys, the guys with the better reputation, tend to often come out on top in closer calls like this. But, I think that Akim should have won. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. And thank you for watching, everybody. Until next time, I'm the Tominator signing off, and I'll be back.